Hello and welcome to the mains PYQ discussion video by Nive. Today we have a question from the 2015 mains. It's a 12.5 marker. We don't have this format type of questions now. We have either 10 markers or 15 markers. So it's a question that we have to tackle for 12.5 marks and it goes like this. The ancient civilization in Indian subcontinent differed from those of Egypt, Mesopotamia and Greece in that its culture and traditions have been preserved without a breakdown to the present day. Comment. So the structure is not directed by the question, it only says we have to comment on the statement given. And the statement talks about three distinct civilizations: Egypt, Mesopotamia, and Greece. And when it talks about Indian civilization, it doesn't specify on whether it is Indus Valley civilization or the Vedic civilization or the Dravidian civilization or the Sangam era civilization. It just says that the ancient Indian civilization in the Indian subcontinent. So the scope of this answer is very wide. We'll start by explaining what this ancient Indian civilization constitutes in the introduction. So we'll talk about the Indus Valley civilization. So Indian civilization can be traced back to the time of Indus Valley civilization in 2500 BC, and we can see its extensions in the Indo-Gangetic plain through Vedic civilization as well as in the Dravidian civilization. So we'll bring these three keywords in the introduction. We have the scope of a map here. So we'll give the Indian civilization what we described here. Here in this map has the Indus Valley part. We'll mark the Vedic civilization and the Sangam civilization. Then we'll mark the Mesopotamian civilization, which is the modern day Iraq and Syria, as well as the Egyptian civilization. Three would be enough in a world map. Now this will act as a value addition for this question. Moving into the body part, as I already mentioned, the structure has to be created by us. So we have created a twofold structure here. First, we will talk about three key elements that are preserved in Indian civilization, because the question is about continuity. So these three key elements that are preserved in Indian civilization will be discussed first. This will be proper examples and value additions. And in the second part, we'll talk about the reason and the mode of preservation. So this will be an analytical part. This will be a factual part. Now in the factual part, we are giving three examples. The first one is ritualistic traditions. For example, we can see something called the Great Bath in the Indus Valley period. So Great Bath is supposed to have a ritualistic meaning. And even till date, Indian society has various ritualistic traditions in which bathing in the Ganges or any holy place is a very sacred thing. So there is a continuity. So we'll give it, that's the first point. Second is about the role of nature in worship, nature related worship. This again can be traced back to the Indus Valley period where we have the motif of Pashupati. We have Pashupati or the Proto Shiva surrounded by animals. So this shows the element of nature right at the center of the civilization, and it still continues in the form of sacred groves, in the form of mythology. It still continues in Indian society. Finally, it's about philosophy. This is an example from the Vedic civilization. We had the philosophy of Vaisudeva Kudumbakam, or you can give the philosophy of Nishkama Karmas, things that are mentioned in Bhagavad Gita, and these things still continues. And Vasudeva Kudumbakam is very important here because this was used as part of the G20 summit as well. So after three examples, we'll go to the analytical part. Why? Why is Indian civilization preserving or ensuring continuity? The first is the embedded nature of religion. So everything that we talk about here, culture and traditions, are embedded with religion. So when religion survives, culture and traditions that are part of it will also survive. Because Hinduism was not a typical religion. It was a culture, it was a group of cultures, group of societies, group of practices that got codified in the post-British time in the form of a modern religion. So since everything is embedded, it still continues. The second is the rigid systems like caste. Even though this point is not so favorable in terms of India, this is one of the reasons why such things continued. Because caste is a very rigid structure. It has very strict laws of pollution, purity, endogamy, maintenance of occupational based segregation. So since it's so rigid, things ensured continuity. This ensured continuity since a very long time. So radical or abrupt changes was prevented by a very strong and regressive system like caste. Third point is geographical factors. If you look at the map of India, we have the Himalayas on the northern side and we are surrounded by sea on three sides in the bottom. So this geographical isolation also contributed to the maintenance and continuity of culture. The fourth point is about literary tradition. So we had a tradition, literary tradition called the Struti. Shruti. It means orally we'll transcribe history. Then it was taken on. The epics like Ramayana and Mahabharata took various forms. They even continue the form of movies in popular culture at present. So this strong literary tradition is also the reason why we have a continuity of culture and traditions. Finally, it's about constitution. So constitution is the modern law of land. And constitution is the bedrock of Indian polity at present. And this constitution ensures the continuity of traditions. For example, if you take the paintings in the constitution created by Nandalal Bose, it has the essence of Indian traditions and culture, like Buddhism, Ramayana. Or if you take the DPSPs, it has elements of culture as well. For example, something like the Gandhian principles. So by all these reasons have ensured continuity of traditions and culture in the Indian society. So we have completed our analysis, we have completed our factual explanation, and now we'll conclude. We'll conclude with a very key point. So if you take other civilization, for example, the Egyptian, Mesopotamian, Greece, so this region was subjected to a lot of wars. For example, the World War, for example. And such fundamental wars and fundamental change in dynasties have made a paradigm shift in the nature of these societies. But when it comes to India, we don't have such a big political instability as such, either in the form of war or in the form of a change in dynasty. We have had various dynasties. We have had the Delhi Sultanate, the Mughals, the British, but everyone had a system of amalgamation. Since it is also because of the large size of the subcontinent. So when the Delhi Sultanate came to India, they evolved something called the Indo-Islamic architecture, taking the Indian and the Islamic elements together. So that is something that differentiates us from the rest of the civilizations. We'll end this discussion with an example of world war or dynastic shifts, and that will suffice our 12.5 marks question. Thank you for listening.